Stop thinking. Your brain is blocking your English. Have you ever wondered why you can understand English so well, but the moment you need to speak, your mind suddenly becomes empty, your mouth freezes, and all the words you thought you knew just disappear? It's frustrating, right? You watch movies without subtitles, you understand your foreign coworkers, you learn grammar, vocabulary, expressions, everything. But when someone turns to you and asks a simple question like, "How are you?" or "Where are you from?" suddenly your brain hits a wall. You panic. You smile awkwardly. You look away. And inside your head, you scream, "Wait! Wait! I know this. I know what to say. But why can't I say it?" Maybe this has happened to you many times. A foreigner asks you for directions, and instead of answering confidently, you freeze, you laugh nervously, and you walk away thinking, "I should have said something. I knew the answer. Why couldn't I speak?" Or maybe at work. Meta. Sex. Point 3. Your boss asks you a question in English. Sex. Point 3. And even though you understood every single word, sex. Point 3. Your mouth cannot form a full sentence. Sex. Point 5. Your heart beats fast. Sex. Point 3. Your hands get sweaty. Sex. Point 3. And you desperately try to think in English. Sex. Point 3. But your brain refuses to cooperate. Sex. Point 5. Then after the moment passes. Sex. Point 3. Suddenly, all the perfect sentences come back to your mind. Sex. Point 5. You whisper to yourself, I should have said this. I should have said that." And you feel embarrassed. Sex. Disappointed. Sex. Point 3. Even angry at yourself. Sex. And the worst part? You start to believe something is wrong with you. Sex. You start telling yourself, 3. Maybe I'm not good at English. Sex. Maybe I'm not meant to speak fluently. Maybe speaking English is too hard for me. But let me tell you something important. There is nothing wrong with you. Nothing. Your problem is not that your English is weak. Your problem is not lack of intelligence. Your problem is not that you don't practice enough. The real problem is something much deeper. #meta. Sex. 0.3. Something that happens inside almost every English learner's brain. Your brain is blocking your English. #meta. Sex. 0.5. Yes. Sex. 0.3. Your own brain. The same brain that helps you understand English. Sex. 0.3. Memorize vocabulary. Sex. 0.3. And pass exams. Is the exact thing stopping you from speaking naturally. Sex. 0.5. And it's not because your brain is broken. It's because your brain is trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you safe from making mistakes, from embarrassment, from judgment. Every time you open your mouth to speak English, your brain says, "Wait, don't talk yet. What if you say it wrong? What if you sound stupid? What if people laugh at you? Think first. Translate first. Plan first." And that is the moment everything freezes. Your brain moves into overthinking mode. You translate word by word. You try to create a perfect sentence. You check your grammar before you even speak. And while all of that mental chaos is happening, Metapause, Sex 0.3. The conversation moves on. Metapause, Sex 0.3. The person is still waiting. Metapause, Sex 0.3. And you feel more and more pressure. Metapause, Sex 0.5, until finally you say nothing. Metapause, Sex 0.5. You stay silent. Metapause, Sex 0.5. And silence becomes your habit. Metapause, Sex 0.5. But today, Metapause, Sex 0.3. In this video, Metapause, Sex 0.3. We are going to break that habit. Sex 0.5. We are going to destroy that mental block. Sex 0.5. We are going to teach your brain a new way to speak English. A natural Sex 0.3 automatic. Sex 0.3 fearless way. Sex 0.5. Because the truth is this, you already have enough English to speak. Sex 0.5. What you don't have is the freedom to use it. Sex 0.5. And that's exactly what this video will give you. Sex 0.5. If you stay with me until the end, Sex 0.3, you will understand why your brain has been blocking your English for so long. Sex 0.3, and more importantly, Sex 0.3, you will learn how to fix it. Sex 0.5. You will learn how to stop overthinking. Sex 0.3. How to stop translating in your head. Sex 0.3. How to speak without freezing. Sex 0.3. And how to use your English in real conversations, even if you're not perfect. Imagine this. You meet a foreigner tomorrow, Sex 0.3, and instead of panicking, 0.3, your words come out naturally. Sex 0.5, you feel calm. 0.5, you feel confident. 0.5, you don't think too much. 0.5, you just speak. Imagine talking in meetings at work without fear. Point 3, expressing your ideas clearly. Point 3, and surprising everyone, including yourself, with your fluency. Point 5, imagine finally becoming the version of yourself who speaks English freely. Point 3, comfortably. Point 3, and confidently. Point 5, that version of you is real, and this video is your first step to unlocking it. So if you are tired of freezing when you need to speak, if you are tired of knowing English but never using it, if you are tired of feeling embarrassed, angry, or disappointed in yourself, then don't go anywhere. Stay with me until the end. Because today, you will discover the real reason behind your speaking block and the exact method to break it forever. Ready? Let's begin. Part 2. Problem. Your brain is suppressing your English skills. Now, let's talk about the real problem. It's the one that has been silently controlling your English for years, without you even realizing it. The truth is simple. Your brain is the one blocking your English, not your grammar, not your vocabulary, not your pronunciation. Your brain. And to fix your speaking, you must first understand what is happening inside your mind every time you try to speak English. Let's start with the first enemy, overthinking. Every time someone speaks English to you, your brain immediately starts analyzing every possible response. You don't focus on communication, you focus on being correct. You think about grammar, you think about vocabulary. You try to structure the perfect sentence. You check your tenses, your word order, currency, your pronunciation, all in a split second. And the more you think, the slower you become. Your brain becomes overloaded. It's like having 5 tabs open in your mind at the same time. Sex, each one fighting for attention. While you are busy thinking, the conversation keeps moving forward, and suddenly you feel pressure and panic. And what does panic do? It shuts your mouth. You freeze. You stay silent. Not because you don't know English, but because your brain is too busy thinking instead of speaking. Overthinking is not a language problem. It's a survival problem. Your brain believes that speaking incorrectly is dangerous, so it tries to protect you by forcing you to analyze everything first. But that protection is exactly what destroys your fluency. Now let's talk about the second enemy, the fear of making mistakes. This fear is so powerful that it controls your body without your permission. When you are afraid of saying something wrong, your brain activates a psychological response similar to danger. Your heart beats faster, your shoulders tense up, your breath becomes shallow, your mind goes blank. You enter what scientists call freeze mode. This freeze mode is the same reaction your body has when you feel threatened. But the threat is not a tiger, not a car accident, not physical harm. The threat is speaking English. Think about that. Your body reacts to English the same way it reacts to danger. No wonder your mouth won't move. No wonder your brain shuts down the moment someone asks you a question. You are not bad at English. You are simply trapped in your brain's fear response. The third enemy is the habit of translating everything in your head. Many learners don't even realize they are doing this, but their mind automatically translates from their native language to English every time they speak. But here's the problem. Translation is slow. Translation is unnatural. Translation destroys fluency. When you translate, your brain must do 3 things at once. Understand the idea in your language, find English words, and arrange them into a correct sentence. That is too much effort for a real-time conversation. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. By the time you finish translating, meta, pause, sex, 0.3. The moment to speak has already passed. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. And again, meta, pause, sex, 0.3. You stay silent. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. It becomes a cycle. You translate, you slow down, you freeze, You feel embarrassed, you lose confidence, you translate even more. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. But here is the most important truth. Native speakers don't translate. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Fluent speakers don't translate. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Confident speakers don't translate. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. They think in ideas. Meta, pause, sex, 0.3. Not words. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. And that is exactly why they sound natural. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. But your brain is still stuck in translation mode because it hasn't been trained to think in English yet. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. The fourth enemy, and the root of all three previous problems, is something built deeply inside your survival instinct. Your brain always chooses safety over communication. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Speaking a second language feels risky to your brain. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Not dangerous physically. Meta, pause, sex, 0.3. But dangerous socially. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Your brain hates embarrassment. Meta, pause, sex, 0.5. It hates uncertainty. It hates the feeling of not being perfect. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. So when you try to speak English, hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.3. Your brain says, be careful. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Don't speak yet. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. What if you say the wrong word? What if people don't understand you? What if you look stupid? And just like that, hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.3. Your brain chooses the safest option. Silence. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Silence feels safe. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Silence feels comfortable. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. Silence protects your ego. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. But silence also kills your fluency. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. The saddest part is that your brain does all of this automatically, not because you are bad at English. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.3. But because your brain thinks it is helping you. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. It thinks it is protecting you. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. It thinks speaking English is dangerous. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. But it's not. Hashtag meta, pause, sex, 0.5. And the moment you understand this, hashtag meta, sex, 0.3, everything changes. Hashtag meta, sex 0.5. Let me explain this in the simplest way. When you face a speaking situation, hashtag meta, sex 0.3. Your brain activates fear mode before it activates English mode. Hashtag meta, sex 0.5. Fear mode says, don't speak. Hashtag meta, sex 0.5. You might make a mistake. Hashtag meta, sex 0.5. English mode says, you know this. Sex 0.5. You can say it. Sex 0.5. But fear mode wins instantly. That's why you freeze. Metapause, sex 0.5. That's why you hesitate. Metapause, sex 0.5. That's why even basic sentences become impossible when someone is waiting for your answer. Metapause, sex 0.5. And here is the craziest part. After the conversation ends, metapause, sex 0.3. Fear mode shuts down. Sex 0.3. English mode turns back on. Sex 0.3. And suddenly, all the perfect sentences appear in your mind. Sex 0.5. You remember the words. Sex 0.5. You remember the grammar. Sex 0.5. You remember everything you couldn't say. Sex 0.5. And you think, why didn't I say that earlier? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. Sex 0.5. Your brain is simply reacting the way it was trained to react. Sex 0.5. From school. Sex 0.3. From tests. Sex 0.3. From being corrected. Sex 0.3. From fearing mistakes. Sex 0.3. From comparing yourself to others. Your brain learned that English must be perfect before you speak. Sex 0.5. That belief is the prison keeping your English locked inside your head. Sex 0.5. But here's the good news. You can retrain your brain. Sex 0.5. You can teach your brain that speaking English is safe. Sex 0.3. Natural. Sex 0.3. And fun. Sex 0.5. You can turn off fear mode and activate speaking mode. And when you do that, hashtag meta. Sex 0.3. Your fluency will come out. Not slowly. Hash meta. Sex 0.3. Not painfully. Meta. Sex 0.3. But naturally. Meta. Sex 0.5. And in the rest of this video, sex 0.3, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Sex 0.5. I'll show you how to break overthinking. Sex 0.3. How to kill the fear of mistakes. Sex 0.3. How to stop translating. Sex 0.3. And how to convince your brain that speaking English is not dangerous. Sex 0.5. So keep watching. Sex 0.3. Because once you understand how your brain works, 0.3, you will finally understand how to change it. Sex 0.5. And when you change your brain, sex 0.3, your English will follow. Sex 0.5. Now that you understand the real reasons your brain has been blocking your English, sex 0.3, it's time to break through that wall once and for all. Sex 0.5. And I want you to remember something important. Your brain can be trained. Sex 0.5. Your speaking ability is not fixed. Sex 0.5. Your hesitation is not permanent. Sex 0.5. Your fear is not your identity. Sex 0.5. The only thing stopping your English from flowing naturally is the way your brain has been conditioned to react. But the good news is this. If your brain learned to fear speaking, Sirat can also learn to enjoy speaking. If your brain learned to freeze, it can also learn to flow. If your brain learned to overthink, it can also learn to respond instantly. Today, I'm going to give you the exact methods to retrain your brain so you can finally speak English without fear, without hesitation, without overthinking. And these methods are backed by real psychology, real language learning science, and real success from thousands of learners who applied them. Part 3. Solutions. Overcoming the brain wall. Let's start with the first major solution. 1. Fluency before accuracy. Most learners try to speak perfectly. They want perfect grammar, perfect sentence structures, perfect pronunciation. But perfection kills fluency. You cannot speak fast if you are trying to speak perfectly. Think about how a child learns a language. They speak quickly, naturally, confidently, even though they make mistakes all the time. But their brain focuses on communication. Sex 0.3, not correctness. Sex 0.5. That is exactly why they learn so fast. Sex 0.5. Adults? Sex 0.3. On the other hand, sex 0.3. Try to speak with test-level English. Sex 0.3. And that mindset slows everything down. Sex 0.5. From today on, sex 0.3. You must shift your brain to a new rule. Your goal is to speak 0.3, not to be perfect. Sex 0.5. When you speak, sex 0.3, don't try to impress anyone. Sex 0.5, don't try to avoid mistakes. Sex 0.5, don't try to sound native. Sex 0.5, instead, sex 0.3, just try to deliver your message. Sex 0.5. You will be amazed how quickly your fluency grows once you let go of the pressure of being perfect. Sex 0.5. Some of my students improved their fluency in just 30 days, simply because they removed the "I must be perfect" mindset. Sex 0.5. One student said she gained more speaking progress in 1 month applying this rule than in 4 years of studying grammar. Sex 0.5. That is the power of letting go. Sex. Now, solution number 2. 2. Stop translating. Start using chunks. Sex. Point 5. Translation is your brain's biggest fluency killer. When you translate, sex. Point 3. Your brain is doing triple the work. Converting ideas, sex. Point 3. Finding vocabulary, sex. Point 3. Rearranging grammar, sex. Point 5. That creates slow. Point 3. Broken speech, sex. Point 5. But fluent speakers don't think word by word. They think in pre-built chunks, point 3, which are natural combinations of words that native speakers use all the time. Point 5. For example, I think that, point 3. In my opinion, point 3. The thing is, point 3. As far as I know, point 3. You know what? Point 3. Let me tell you something. Point 5. When you learn chunks, point 3, your brain does not have to build sentences from zero. Point 5. It just plugs your ideas into ready-made structures. Point 5. This instantly reduces overthinking and speeds up your fluency. Point 5. Scientific research from the University of Nottingham shows that learners who use chunk training speak 2 to 3 times faster than those who focus on grammar rules. Point 5. Here's your practice. Choose 5 chunks and repeat them 20 times each. Point 3. Then use them to answer simple questions. Example. What do you think about studying English? Answer using chunks. Well, sex. I think that learning English is something everyone should try. The thing is, you need consistency. As far as I know, practice is more important than rules. Notice how natural and smooth that sounds? That's the magic of chunks. Now, solution number 3. Speak slowly, but never stop. Many people think fluency means speaking fast. That's wrong. Fluency means speaking without freezing. Speaking slowly is not a problem. Freezing is. When you speak slowly but continuously, your brain stays active in English mode. When you pause too long, your brain switches back to your native language and triggers fear mode again. So your rule is, slow is okay, stopping is not. This technique is used in actor training, lawyer training, even presidential speech training. Speaking slowly gives your brain time to process, but speaking continuously prevents hesitation. Let me give you an example. If someone asks you, hashed meta, what did you do last weekend? And you don't know how to answer, don't freeze. Start with something simple. Well, last weekend, I didn't do much actually. I stayed home and I watched some movies. It doesn't matter if it's simple. It matters that you keep going. Staying in motion is how you override fear mode. Now let's talk about the 4th solution. Train your brain with the 60-second speaking rule. This is one of the most powerful exercises ever created for improving fluency. Here's how it works. Every day, choose one simple topic. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Then speak non-stop for the entire 60 seconds. You cannot pause. You cannot think too long. You cannot translate. You must keep the words flowing, even if they are not perfect. If you don't know what to say, repeat a sentence or change the topic slightly. The goal is not correctness. Your goal is to train your brain to stay in English mode under pressure. Neuroscientists have shown that speaking under time pressure rewires your neural pathways and helps your brain switch from thinking mode to automatic mode, the same mode that native speakers use. After 30 days of this exercise, 8 out of 10 learners reported massive improvements in confidence, fluency, and speaking speed. And here's the best part. You can do this alone. You don't need a partner. You don't need a teacher. You just need 1 minute. Now, solution number 5. Rewire fear mode with mistake immunity. To speak English freely, you must teach your brain that mistakes are not dangerous. So here is a challenge. For the next week, your goal is to intentionally make at least 20 speaking mistakes. Yes, you heard that right. Make mistakes on purpose. Say grammar incorrectly. Use the wrong tense. Mispronounce words. Why? Because when you intentionally make mistakes, your brain stops seeing them as threats. You show your brain that nothing bad happens when you speak imperfectly. You remove the fear. Sex. You remove the shame. You remove the hesitation. Many learners who tried this method reported that after 3 days, their fear of speaking reduced dramatically. They realized the fear came not from English, but from their belief that mistakes are unacceptable. When that belief dies, fluency comes alive. Now, solution number 6. Build daily micro-habits of English output. You don't need 2 hours a day to improve your speaking. You need consistency. Short, daily speaking habits train your brain far better than long, irregular study sessions. For example, talk to yourself in English for 2 minutes in the morning. Narrate your actions while cooking or cleaning. Describe what you see when you're walking outside. Answer simple questions aloud while looking in the mirror. Every time your brain produces English, even small sentences, you strengthen your speaking muscle. And just like going to the gym, small daily repetitions lead to huge results over time. Finally, #meta. Pause. Sex 0.3. The most important solution. 7. Shift your identity. Become a person who speaks English. #meta. Pause. Sex 0.3. Not studies it. Sex 0.5. Identity shapes behavior. Meta. Sex 0.5. If you see yourself as someone who studies English, meta. Sex 0.3. You will continue learning passively. Sex 0.5. But when you see yourself as someone who uses English, sex 0.3, your entire relationship with the language changes. Sex 0.5. You speak more. Sex 0.5. You practice more. Sex 0.5. You take more risks. Sex 0.5. Your confidence grows. Sex 0.5. Your fluency grows. Sex 0.5. And your brain stops blocking you because speaking becomes part of who you are. Sex 0.3. Not something you fear. Sex, 0.5. Tell yourself every morning, I am an English speaker. Sex, 0.5. Not someday. Sex, 0.5. Not in the future. Sex, 0.5. Today. Sex, 0.5. When you combine all these solutions, fluency before accuracy, sex, 0.3. Chunk training, sex, 0.3. Continuous speaking, sex, 0.3. The 60-second rule, sex, 0.3. Mistake immunity, sex, 0.3. Daily micro habits, sex, 0.3. And identity shift, you retrain your brain completely. Sex, 0.5. You teach it that speaking is safe. Sex, 0.3. Natural. Sex, 0.3. Enjoyable. Sex, 0.5. And when your brain feels safe, sex, 0.3, your English finally comes out. These methods have transformed thousands of learners who once struggled just like you. People who froze. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.3. Hesitated. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.3. Panicked. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.3. And stayed silent. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. Today, meta, pause. Sex, 0.3. Many of them speak confidently because they stopped fighting their brain and started training it. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. And now it's your turn. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. If you apply these strategies consistently, sex, 0.3, your English will break free. Sex, 0.5. You will speak more smoothly. Sex, 0.3. More confidently. Sex, 0.3. More naturally than ever before. Sex, 0.5. Part 4. 60-second practice exercises. Now that you understand why your brain blocks your English and how to retrain it, sex, 0.3. It's time for the most important part of this entire video, the practical exercises. Sex, 0.5. Listening alone won't change your fluency. Sex, 0.5. Motivation alone won't unlock your speech. Sex, 0.5. What transforms you is action. Consistent. Sex, 0.3. Intentional. Sex, 0.3. Daily action. Sex, 0.5. The exercises you're about to do are not random. Sex, 0.5. They are not just for fun. Sex, 0.5. They are scientifically designed to push your brain out of fear mode and into speaking mode. They are structured to break overthinking. #meta. Sex, 0.3 stop translation. #meta. Sex, 0.3 increase automatic response. #meta. Sex, 0.3. And build the neural pathways your brain needs to speak English freely. #meta. Sex, 0.5. Many learners who tried these exercises saw improvement in just 1 week. Meta. Sex. 0.5. Some said they felt more confident speaking in English after doing these drills than after years of traditional study. Meta. Sex. 0.5. So take this section seriously. Sex. 0.5. Don't just watch it. Sex. 0.5. Do it with me. Sex. 0.5. Right now. Sex. 0.5. Don't wait for tomorrow. Sex. 0.5. Don't say, I'll do it later. Sex. 0.5. Your fluency depends on what you do in the next few minutes. Sex. 0.5. Ready? Let's begin with exercise 1. Exercise 1. The 30-second non-stop speaking drill. Sex. 0.5. This exercise trains your brain to speak without freezing. Sex. 0.3. Without overthinking. Sex. 0.3. Without searching for perfect grammar. Sex. 0.5. The goal is simple. Speak for 30 seconds without stopping. Sex. 0.5. Not worrying about accuracy. Sex. 0.5. Not thinking too long. Sex. 0.5. Not trying to sound impressive. Sex. 0.5. Just speak. And our topic will be something everyone can talk about. Introduce yourself. Sex. 0.5. You might think it's too simple. Sex. 0.3. But that's exactly why it works. 0.5. Your brain doesn't need complicated topics. It needs repetition, flow, and confidence. 0.5. So here's what I want you to do. When I say start, you begin speaking immediately. Don't plan. Don't prepare. Don't rehearse in your head. Just open your mouth and say the first thing that comes to you, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, even if it's basic. Remember, fluency is the ability to keep going, not the ability to be perfect. I'll give you a simple structure you can follow. My name is, I'm from, I'm currently, I like. One interesting fact about me is, but you don't have to follow it exactly. You can say whatever comes naturally. The only rule is, do not stop. If you get stuck, repeat the last sentence. If you can't think of a word, describe it. If your grammar feels wrong, ignore it and continue. The whole point is to train your brain to stay in English mode. Sex. 0.5. So take a deep breath. 0.5. Relax your shoulders. 0.5. Clear your mind. 0.5. And get ready. When I say go, your 30 seconds of continuous speaking begins. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Speak now. Don't stop. Keep going. Whatever comes to your mind, say it. You are training your brain right now. Feel the flow. Feel the movement. Don't judge your English. Just speak. Keep going. Don't freeze. Don't overthink. Words don't need to be perfect. They just need to come out. Good. Keep going. You're doing great. And stop. How did that feel? Did you feel the pressure? Did you notice the moment your brain wanted to pause or switch to your native language? That moment, right there, is the mental block we are breaking. Every time you do this exercise, that block gets weaker. Every time you push through, your fluency grows stronger. Do this exercise every day, and you will feel a real transformation in your speaking confidence. Now let's move on to exercise 2, chunk training. Sex 0.5. If exercise 1 builds your speaking momentum, Sex 0.3. Exercise 2 builds your natural sounding English. Sex 0.5. Chunks are ready-made phrases that help you speak without building sentences from zero. 0.5. They allow your brain to access English faster. 0.3. Smoother. 0.3. And more naturally. 0.5. Native speakers use chunks all the time. That's why they sound fluent. And today, we are going to train your brain to use them automatically. I'll give you 3 powerful chunks, 0.3, and your job is to repeat each one 3 times with clear voice. 0.3, natural rhythm. 0.3, and confidence. 0.5. Chunk 1. Today I want to talk about. This is the perfect chunk to start any sentence. 0.3. Any topic. 0.3. Any answer. 0.5. Repeat after me 3 times. Today I want to talk about. Today I want to talk about. Today I want to talk about. Good. Feel how natural that sounds? You can use it anytime you're asked a question. 0.5. Now, chunk 2. For me personally, this chunk gives you time to think while sounding fluent. It signals your opinion without needing complex grammar. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. Repeat after me. For me personally. For me personally. For me personally. Excellent. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. And now chunk 3. One more thing. This chunk helps you extend your answers. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. Instead of stopping after one sentence and feeling stuck, meta, pause. Sex, 0.3. You can naturally continue speaking. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. Repeat with me. One more thing. One more thing. One more thing. Perfect. Meta, pause. Sex, 0.5. These chunks may seem simple. Sex, 0.3. But they are extremely powerful. Sex, 0.5. Once your brain remembers them, sex, 0.3, you will always have something to say. Sex, 0.5. You will never freeze at the beginning of a sentence. Sex, 0.5. You will sound more fluent instantly. Sex, 0.5. The more you repeat them, sex, 0.3, the more naturally they will appear in your daily speech. Sex, 0.5. So here's your practice. After this video, sex, 0.3. Choose a topic, any topic, and speak for 1 minute using these 3 chunks. Sex, 0.5. Example, Today I want to talk about my weekend. Sex, 0.5. For me personally, sex, 0.3.